Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have two stories for you from the ProRevenge subreddit. Before we start, make sure to check out my website, CanadianRob.com. I've got a limited edition 3 chameleon set for sale up there right now in red, gold, and green because a bunch of you asked for it. Check it out on the website, CanadianRob.com. Enough of that, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Present Platypus 578. Boss from hell gets what she deserves. I, 30s female, have been a people pleaser to a fault my whole life. I've been working in marketing for 10 plus years. Over the years, I've had my fair share of bosses who were good, average, and some who sucked. There is one in particular that stood out as awful. This story is from about 5 years ago. Pamela, 40s, not real name, was the VP of Marketing and Sales for a mid-size retailer. She started at the company a few years after I did, and if rumors were true, she was the 4th pick for the position and was simply hired so the company could appease shareholders. I was a manager under her, and my whole job was to make sure the website and stores had their products merchandised properly, received all their monthly sales materials, managed advertising, set up and managed the department's budget, PM'd all department projects and operations, created reporting to reflect sales, managed presentations and creative briefs for future projects, etc. In short, I did her work and all the administrative grunt work to keep the department afloat. I managed all this because I had access to her email and many times sent emails on her behalf to keep the department functioning. Pamela spent most of her time showing up after 10 a.m., taking business lunches, and planning company parties. Don't even know why we did those, but I planned those too. I consistently questioned why she spent so much of our budget on these events when we didn't have the budget resources for any of it. Pamela told me to take from future months' budgets to pay for the current month's overspending. So at the start of every month, I had an original budget, and by the end of the month, I had to turn in an edited budget, edited under Pamela's direction, that made it look like Pamela's spending was under control. This is important for later. I definitely made mistakes here and there being in charge of so many tasks, and constantly found myself working 12-hour days split between being in the office and working after my kid went to bed. Weekend work was also done before my family woke up and after they went to bed. During Pamela's first major holiday season, sales were crap. Pamela kept changing her mind on the visuals for stores, kept bringing on new advertising and PR agencies to bring in sales. All these agencies consisted of her personal friends, and ignored our buying and merchandise team's planned promotions for her own better ones. At this time, I had been dealing with an ongoing infection that turned to sepsis and was hospitalized. The doctors and my husband said it was due to the stress of work and that I needed to take a break. As I recovered, I realized how much I was hurting myself, my family, and even the company I worked for. Eventually, my old habits got to me, and I got on my phone and checked mine and my boss's emails. What I found made my blood boil. First, I got a lovely bouquet of flowers from upper management wishing me well, and I knew that Pamela organized the delivery. She sent me her favorite flowers. I went to her inbox to put the receipt in the correct folder to send to accounting when I got back. At the top of her inbox from the past 3 days were emails clearly not related to business. What I found in her emails was Pamela emailing her personal friends griping on how I can't just shake off sepsis and get back to work. She also complained that she couldn't find any of my notes, spreadsheets, or documents for any of the work she was technically in charge of. They were on our shared drive labeled very clearly. Finally, I found an email where she sent a friend from a previous company asking for advice on how to bring in sales and save her job. In this long thread, this old colleague asked if there was anyone managing most of the work, and of course, Pamela said I was. This colleague explained that clearly it was my mismanagement that was causing issues, and that I could be blamed if sales didn't pull through by the end of the season. Pamela mentioned that I was in the hospital and repeated comments from her other email thread. This person said that she couldn't outright fire me because it could seem like retaliation because I needed to take emergency medical leave. But if Pamela could prove I was stealing from the company or misusing company resources, then she would have grounds to have me fired and use me as a scapegoat. Upon my return, Pamela called me into her office and said she was worried I was taking on too much and wanted to take work off my plate. She announced she was taking managing the department budget off my plate. She asked me to only drop a small stack of invoices to accounting. Additionally, Pamela told me under no circumstances was I allowed to talk to accounting about anything regarding budgets. Also, if I had any concerns about the department or workload, I wasn't allowed to go to HR. I had to discuss it directly with Pamela. Oh yeah, I could see where this was going. Unfortunately for Pamela, I had built a rapport with Lois, 50's not real name, who was our main accountant. Lois always said that she would do everything in her power to help me should I ask. Knowing this, I grabbed the stack of invoices off Pamela's desk to give to accounting. I also added the email threads I read while I was in the hospital, and the current unedited budget that Pamela hadn't touched yet for the month. I also found in my filing cabinet the hard copies of old budgets with Pamela's handwriting on what numbers to change to balance our budget. Finally, I added an email from our first round of budget adjustments where Pamela subtly threatened to put someone else in my job if I couldn't do what she asked. So I walked and dropped off the invoices to accounting when I bumped into Lois. She brought up invoices and I sternly looked at her and said, Pamela is the only one in our department that Lois is allowed to talk to about our budget and invoices. Lois saw the suspiciously thick file folder on her desk, gave me a firm nod, and lovingly kicked me out of her office. Within the week, Pamela was fired. From what I understand, she has been continually job hopping for the past few years. The CEO and HR brought me in to personally apologize for everything I went through, and gave me a paid 1-week vacation to take at my discretion. Given other issues with this business, I left after another year. Which brings me to today. I am, once again, a manager for sales and marketing. I have a wonderful boss, Mike, 40s male, who trusts my business decisions and backs me up on practically everything. We are hiring my team for me to solely manage and direct. Today, I looked through the applicants and found Pamela's resume sitting among dozens of others. I stared at her name, wondering how many other people share her name. Upon review, yep, it's her. She definitely fell down the corporate ladder, with VP of our old company being the highest title she earned. And to no surprise, she embellished her achievements, claiming the work I managed as her own, and claimed she generated an 87% sales growth during the holiday season at our previous company. As a people pleaser who firmly believes in giving everyone a chance, it has never been so satisfying to click disqualified. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, edit, to those suggesting I interview her to see her reaction, I would have loved to see her face as she walked in, but I felt it would have risked my boss's trust in my decision-making ability. Maybe I'll send her a personally written rejection email. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Me Not at Work. It says, you are clearly too nice. I would have definitely had HR call her to arrange an interview, assuming you would be sitting across from her. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing the face of someone like that when they see karma staring them in the face. Another commenter down below called She Who Loves to Draw said, this is why cover your butt needs to be drilled into everyone's head when they enter the workforce. You did great in having all the evidence you needed to protect yourself after your former boss so arrogantly tried to throw you under the bus to cover her own butt. We drive that home on this channel all the time. Document, document, document. Even if you think it's mundane, everyday stuff that just seems a little bit off, document, because you never know when you're going to need to use that. Always cover your butt. Nobody's looking out for you but yourself. This story comes to us from Classy Pyro. You like picking on me at the office? It's just gonna cost you a pay raise. Oh, and you might have to quit to save face. I'd like to emphasize early on that if your employer offers you the option to do an exit interview when you quit, or they fire you, by all means do it, especially if it is a toxic workplace. If they don't, well, fire off an email to HR with some constructive criticism so that the company may improve itself. And don't be afraid to say out loud all the things you've held in. Okay, let's begin. Last year, after much thought, I decided to quit my job. It wasn't specifically B-Face, as we'll call her, that caused me to quit, but that just mixed in with other issues, and eventually, I just said F it, grabbed the first job opening I could find, and went on my merry way. See, B-Face, for some reason, had a knack for picking on me ever since I started at the job, as an intern, back in 2014 when I was halfway through college. The pay wasn't much, but it was the first real job I've ever had. Plus, my boss at the time was a great person, and to this day is still someone I can count on, and above all, a true friend. Moving forward from all that mushy-gushy stuff, B-Face had a knack for picking on me ever since day one. At the beginning, it was for minor stuff, such as a mistake here and there. It was natural since I was still learning the ropes, and hey, mistakes get made, but eventually it started growing. If you've worked at a mindless, bureaucratic, desk jockey type of job, you know that at a few points in the day, people are just going to slow down their rhythm and start idle chat about what they've been up to and on and on. Naturally, this is how people got to know me and such. Not gonna lie, I was a pretty boring person, so whenever I did something, people would ask about literally all the details. At first, it began with B-Face calling bullcrap on my backstory. Whatever, I just brushed it off. The next major one where she really did dial it up a notch was when I went out for a little postgraduate activities, aka drinks after class with friends. Someone took a picture where I was clearly seen sipping on a fancy cocktail, posted it on Facebook and tagged me for everyone to see. Well, B-Face the next Monday nonchalantly asked me about it and went on a tirade about how I was becoming an alcoholic and other things. It wasn't something I did often, so it ended up as an in-joke of sorts, but B-Face still insisted on it every chance she got. Also, one of our colleagues that regularly went out on Fridays and got crap-faced and also loudly and proudly admitted to it, well, B-Face thought that was normal and never paid any mind to it. Next big incident was when I accidentally blurted out that I was going to take shooting classes. B-Face loved it, literally managed to stop the whole office when she found out, because she was 100% sure that the week after classes, I would show up to work like Rambo with a machine gun in each hand, a red bandana, and a taste for vengeance. Not only did she blatantly say that it was a serious character fault, but also went on a tirade about how it was the result of me not going to church enough, a bad upbringing, among other things. I actually had to sit down with my boss to talk about it and ask him to intervene, which he did, and she got a big chewing out by our manager. She didn't stop though. 2 months later, I took over one of my colleagues' duties while she was on 4 months maternity leave. B-Face nitpicked everything I did for 4 months. If she found any mistakes or anything, she loudly and proudly announced it to the whole office. At the time, I was also going to the therapist for stress and depression related issues, and my therapist said I should really look into changing jobs, since there was nothing I could really do to fight B-Face, since she had been at the company for 10 plus years and knew the manager for 10 plus years also. A month after my colleague returned and I got back to my usual activities, I get my paid vacations, and halfway through them, I found a job opening at a local fruit distributor. I know it was shady, but heck, I took it. After going through all the bureaucratic mess, HR asked if I'd like to do an exit interview, but that unfortunately wasn't possible due to me having found a new job and already being in it. So instead, they just told me to fire off an email to the head of HR. Fast forward 5 months to yesterday evening, at a cafe with my old boss, chewing the fat and catching up on things, he let me on that the one email I sent to the head of HR ended up in quite a bit of blowback on B-Face's career. While I did write about the positive things I saw in the company in my email and stated the reasons I was quitting, the bit about the rotten bits of the company created quite some backlash. Apparently, the head of HR had a sit down with our branch's manager and the company's director about the email and said she was quite concerned about the feedback she had received, especially the part where I talked about being persecuted and harassed in the office for just about anything I did. I didn't name anyone specifically in the email, but pointed out several situations where I was harassed and a double standard was applied in regards to my colleagues. Obviously, this reflects poorly on someone's reputation as a manager, being that HR will keep it in file in eternum for all eternity. Our manager called my boss and B-Face for a sit-down of her own. She proceeded to give B-Face a big chewing out. Because of it, and apparently, it cost B-Face a big pay raise. It also apparently tipped the balance on our manager's plans since she decided to call it quits. In turn, B-Face realized that her work ethics would not bode well with the new manager that would have none of it, and has since also decided to quit. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Creepy Kiki. It says, considering you didn't name names, but the manager knew to call B-Face with your boss, it was good that you got out of that job. They knew she was a problem, but did nothing until someone higher up got involved. Another user down below called Regenson says, this should have been brought to HR before you quit. Careful what you put in an exit interview. You don't want to burn bridges. In my former company, if you complained about the company in your exit interview, you would never get rehired. If a potential employer called for a reference, the only response from HR is, we would or would not rehire. I don't think that was one of OP's concerns in this case because OP had another job to go to already. It does sound like the higher-ups already knew there was a problem with B-Face, but they needed something official to come through so they could actually do something about it. Yeah, it sucks, but sometimes you need those official complaints from people higher up to actually get rid of a problem in a workplace. Don't forget to check out my website, CanadianRob.com, for your own 3D printed Carmen Chameleon. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.